Welcome everyone to the 62nd UP National Writers Workshop. Isa itong mahabang tradisyon, nasa 62nd iteration na tayo at welcome sa Baguio. Ang workshop format ay matagal ng tradisyon at dito nagtatagpo ang mga iba't magkakaibang henerasyon tayo, no? Merong bata, merong bata-bata, at meron ng hindi rin naman na kabataan, papalapit na doon sa kabilang spectrum ng edad. Anyway, nandito tayo para magkita-kita, sa pagkatanda ko, nakausap ko noon minsan ng isang senior writer, si Rolando Tolentino. Bata-bata pa ako noon at sabi ko sa kanya, Sir, mabisa po ba talaga ang workshop? Sa pagkakatanda ko, sabi niya, oo naman, kasi may lumapit daw sa kanya noon sa Siliman at nagtanong, Sir, maganda ba yung akda ko? Tapos, inilabas niya yung manuskrito at inamoy-amoy at sabi niya ay, nangangamoy na ito, ilibing na natin. Pero hindi naman tayo aabot sa ganon dito, sa workshop. Hindi na uso yung ganon, Pero ang naiisip ko ay para ito isang eksena ni Luigi Pirandello na 6 authors in search of an author. Kaya nadoble dito sa inyo, 12. So 12 authors in search, 12 characters in search of an author. Pero ang hinahanap ninyong author ay kayo rin, At sa drama, meron lang namang 3 kahanggahan ang eksena, magkikita-kita ang mga karakter sa loob ng eksena at syempre merong kontrabida, may bida, at hindi maiwasan ang conflict na siya namang buod ng anumang pangyayaring dramatiko. Hopefully hindi naman tayo ang inyong drama hindi naman magtatapos sa walang nangyari o kaya sa malungkot na pangyayari, although hindi maiiwasan yun, kundi sa masayang ending. So lahat ay matututo, magbabahagihan ng kanilang journey sa pagsulat at iyon naman ang ating hangarin dito na iangat natin sa pambansang kabuluhan. So yun lamang po, welcome, happy workshopping.
What? Mga expectations na?
Review lang.
Ha?
I think we should review first.
It is in the memory and honor of these writers who passed away during the COVID-19 pandemic, a time when writing, literature, and the arts were considered non-essentials, a time when death, dying, and grieving were done in anxious solitudes. that we begin the 62nd UP National Writers Workshop. Most of these writers have been fellows, panelists, and authors of the UP Institute of Creative Writing, especially its own national artists Amelia La Peña Bonifacio and Bienvenido Lumbera, who served as fellows and advisors until their passing. It is in their places of honor that we begin the workshop and our commitment to again continue to do what we do best, ang magsulat, ang lumikha, ang maglathala, ang magsadula, ang magmundo, ang lumikha ng mga alternatibong mundo. At sa unang pagkakataon, sa 4 na taon, ginagawa natin ito ng face-to-face, hindi na para lumikha ng virtual, kundi ng aktual na komunidad ng mga manunulat. Ang napisil kong tema para sa 62nd UP National Writers Workshop ay Writing as Memory as Truth, na tulad ng mga nauna sa atin, ang ating panulat ay magsisilbing pagsaksi at pag-alaala na ang katotohanan ng manunulat ay may ugnay sa mas malaking katotohanan at alaala ng bayan. Ang workshop logo na dinsenyo ng visual artist Daniel Madrid na siya rin gumawa ng in memoriam video ng mga manunulat ay halaw sa Russian constructivist art na malinaw at makulay ang mga bahagi para mabuo ang akta, ang sining, ang katotohanan. Ito ang kanyang nilikhang pagsulat at pag-akda ng mundo or writing the world. Ika niya, this year we come back to our roots as we meet face-to-face to sharpen our words and messages in these times of struggle against lies, revisionism, and fake news. Kaya sa halina ng paanyayang ito, na muling patalasin ang ating kasangkapan bilang mga manunulat na ang ating gamit na sa mga salita, sa wika, sa panulat, at sa sining ay sama-samang ganasin sa mga session at sa workshop. Kinalulugod ko rin banggitin ang obserbasyon na sa isa na namang rare occasion, may gender parity ang mga babae at lalaking fellows sa 62nd UP National Writers Workshop, na indikasyon na namumulat na rin ang Institute sa ganitong kahilingan ng panahon. Mabuhay muli ang enerhiya ng panulat at sining para sa kapangyarihang lumikha at magmundo ng mga salita, ng wika, ng mga manunulat. Mabuhay ang mga manunulat at pagbati sa fellows ng 62nd UP National Writers Workshop. Maraming salamat. Para simulan natin ang ating formal na simulan natin ang ating workshop ay tulad ng mga sa nauna sa mga workshop natin sa mga nagdaang mga panahon ay inilalatag natin ang expectation checks ng mga fellows. Susunod dito ang the places where the panelists are coming from or what they are looking when they read text. No? So simulan natin sa expectations ng mga fellows. Can we begin with Kate? Si Kenneth muna. Is the microphone with you? As the sessions are recorded, please use the mics when you speak.
Magandang umaga po. Kung sa expectations po, una sa sarili kong manuskrito, inaasahan ko sana na yung pagpapakinis ng lengguwahe, pagpapasimple ng mga pangungusap at talata dahil tulad siguro ng maraming mga kapwa manunulat sa Pilipino, merong tendency siguro na mapahaba yung mga pangungusap at talata at gusto ko sana na yun yung papaiksi ng mga pangungusap at talata ang isa sa in-expect ko. Yung tips din sa pagbubuo ng struktura ng kwento mula sa totoong mga pangyayari kasi nagmumula nga ako sa pagiging mamahayag at yung mga sinusulat ko kadalasan mga may political na tema, mga pangyayari sa politika at sa mga pakikibakang ng mga mamamayan. Kaya naisip ko paano ba natin mas mapapahusay yung pagkukwento ng mga pangyayaring ito sa forma na malikhain at sa forma ng isang nakakaingganyong basahin at hindi lang at tatagal sa panahon, no? Stand the test of time. Yun yung isa kong expectation. At sa huli, yung expectation ko rin sana na dahil may interest din ako sa forma ng tula at fiction, nag-aral din kasi ako nung bata. Sinantabi ko ito at hindi ko na tinuloy yung aking interest sa pagsusulat ng fiction at ng tula. At bagamat hindi ako fellow ng fiction at ng poetry, gusto ko sana mapag-aralan din ito at mabalikan yung aking hilig at kagustuhang magsulat sa formang ito. Siyempre, fan din ako ng poetry and fiction. Kaya interesado po ako makinig at matuto. Yun lang po.
Hello, hi. I'm Kate Toralba. My expectations for the workshop are actually I had no expectations. I didn't think I would be here, but I really intend to milk it. I really intend to learn those and from our panelists. And well, I would really like my story to improve. I would like it to be impeccable, and I also have an interest in creative nonfiction, so the discussions on creative nonfiction I will follow. And yeah, just very happy to be here. Thank you. Good morning po sa lahat. Hanggang ngayon kinakabahan pa rin ako na nandito ako at may ganun talaga sigurong pressure na kapag nakapasok ka na sa UP National Writers Workshop. Ang expectation ko lang po siguro ay mabasa sana yung akda ko sa lente na hinihingi nito para matulungan ako na matapos yung work ko at may publish ko siya at sa esensya ay mas makapaglabas pa ako ng mga bagong akda sa hinaharap. So ayun po. Meron na po.
Good morning, everyone. Honestly, parang interesado akong makahanap muli ng purpose sa bilang isang manunulat sa isang komunidad na puno ng mga manunulat. I guess all of us here have dedicated our lives to words and letters and to sentences, etc., etc. So gusto kong madama kung bakit at ayun, para may buhay, bakit nga muli. Maraming salamat.
Oh my gosh. Good morning. In a previous workshop, we learned about forgive the terms, the ideal reader and the idiot reader, and each piece has their own. There are like nearly 30 voices in here, I guess. So I'm expecting that each piece has an ideal reader and an idiot reader, and I am hoping that nobody takes that personally. On my part, I am in a new chapter of my life and in my life in general and in my creative life, and I'm hoping that this workshop will help point me in the direction of this new chapter. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Magandang umaga sa lahat. Ang expectation ko naman, una kinabahan ako nung nakita ko na ako lang yung nag-iisang makata dito sa workshop. So una sa lahat, ang expectation ko or ang hiling ko ay sana mabigyan ng sapat na tuon yung pagbasa sa aking mga tula. Dahil naiintindihan ko po na talagang may ibang disiplina ang pagsulat ng prosa at pagsulat ng tula, at karamihan ng kasama ko dito ay mga manunulat sa prosa. So ang hiling ko po ay sana bigyan din ng masusing pagbasa yung aking mga tula, kahit na medyo mahirap i-access yung mga akda ko, hindi lang sa anyo, kundi sa antas din ng bokabularyo. Dahil gumagamit ako ng isang uri ng Filipino na medyo hindi karaniwang naririnig o nagagamit sa karaniwang buhay, maging sa karaniwang akdang pampanitikan na nakikita natin. So may ganun akong pagtatangka. So yun yung una kong hiling. Pangalawa, ang expectation ko po ay una, matulungan po sana ako na pahigpitin yung balangkas ng proyektong binubuo ko. Tipilin ng kailangan tipilin, pahabain o palawigin ng kailangan palawigin. At sana po magkaroon ako ng panibagong kislap diwa o insight hinggil sa kung paano ko lalong patatalasin yung mga tema na ibig kong palitawin dun sa binubuo kong koleksyon. Pangatlo po, expectation ko ay matutulungan ako ng mga fellow at ng aming mga panelists na maging mas mabuting mambabasa sapagkat ito po yung talagang cornerstone, no, ng pagiging mga mabuting manunulat. Ang magaling na manunulat ay una sa lahat magaling na mambabasa. At huli po, dahil interesado rin po ako sa iba't ibang genre ng panitikan kagaya ng dula, kagaya ng sanaysay at ng katha, ako po ay sabik na matuto sa aking mga co-fellow, sa kanilang mahuhusay na akda, maging sa aming mga panelists na gagabayan kami sa pagbasa at pagbalangkas at pagbuo, pagpapatalas ng mga akda namin. Maraming salamat po, magandang umaga sa lahat.
Hello? Hello? Good morning. Simple lang yung sa akin. I just expect useful criticism for the project I'm doing. It's kind of a departure from how I have written in the past. So I'm testing out how to do it. So yun lang po. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Hello, magandang umaga po sa lahat. So, una sa sarili ko pong akda, ang expectation at hiling ko po sana ay makakuha ng malinaw na ideya kung paano ba ito tatanggapin ng mga bata at ng matatanda. Kasi kahit kwentong pambata, yung target audience sana ng mga kwento ay children and adults. Tapos, para naman po sa buong workshop, kasi nung nagsimula po akong magsulat, akala ko ang maisusulat ko lang all my life ay creative non-fiction. Meron akong ganung paniniwala na hindi ko kaya mag-fiction or yung ibang mga genre. Pero ngayon, nagsusulat ako ng kwentong pambata. So excited ako na after this, ano kaya yung masusubukan ko naman. Salamat po.
Magandang umaga. Ang expectation ko sa workshop ay matuto tumingin sa sarili kong gawa ng critical. Napansin ko sa lahat ng mga kasama ko sa workshop, napakahusay nilang magsalita tungkol sa sarili nilang akda. Yun ang nakikita kong kakulangan sa sarili ko. Tapos, tinamaan ako dun sa sinabi ni Sir Jimmy kagabi na ano nga ba ang nasa puso ng iyong panulat. Yun ang gusto kong matuntun sa workshop na ito at malaking tulong sa akin ang marinig kung ano ang nasa puso ng panulat ng lahat ng aking mga kasama dito. Maraming salamat po.
Hello. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Ako po muli si Romel. Isa pong malaking karangalan na naririto ako ngayon sa harap ng mga manunulat na hinahangaan ko. Ganun din yung mga contemporary at mga halos kaidaran ko pong mga manunulat na nagpupunyagi sa kanilang mga piniling genre at sa kanilang piniling gawain na pagsusulat. So isa pong napakalaking pribilehiyo no, na magpapasa ng sarili kong gawa. So yun po yung una kong expectation, of course, ay andito ko para magpabasa ng aking gawa. At kung paano ito babasahin ay hindi ko na po sasabihin, no, kundi wala na po kayo na-expect, kundi basahin ito ng iba't ibang paraan. No? Ganun din, ibig sabihin nito ay bukod sa pagpapabasa, expectation ko rin na magbasa. No? ng mga sinulat ng aking mga co-fellow. At doon sa pagbabasa na yun, meron akong kamalayan na ito ay isang solitaryong gawain, no? Ito ay ginagawa ng isang tao na mag-isa madalas, no? Kaya napakagandang forum ng workshop para malaman yung iba't ibang paraan ng pagbabasa ng iba't ibang individual, lalo na ng mga pinakang mahusay magbasa ng mga akda, no? Kaya ang pangalawang ekspektasyon ko ay siguro malaman kung paano ba binabasa ang mga gawa sa iba't ibang mga pamamaraan, iba't ibang mga interes. Nang sa ganun ay malaman ko rin kung paano nire-revise ang isang akda, hindi lamang dun sa aking gawa, kundi sa iba pang mga genre, patay doon sa mga pagbabasa na ito. At doon din sa pagbabasa na ito, meron din akong sigurong inaantay din no, na malamang meron din ako maririnig ng mga bagong reading list, no, na may kinalaman doon sa mga akda na ito. At tingin ko yung mga reading list na yun ay in some ways pagmamapa doon sa kung nasa saan yung location ng bawat mga akda, no, saan siya imamapa, no. Maraming salamat at muli magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Isang muling karangalan na naririto po ako. Thank you po.
Good morning, I'm Will. So I'm very excited to learn from all of you since I'm not a formally trained writer. I wanted to be formally trained, but it didn't happen. So I'm trying to catch up as much as I can. So I really want to hear from all of you since my only readers are my friends and I doubt if they really read what I write. They just tell me na, okay na yan, it's okay. So I doubt if they actually read it. So I would like to take this opportunity for the experts to read what I write. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to say that I'm very grateful for this opportunity to focus on craft, to focus on learning about craft, about writing, and to learn from other people, other writers in other genres, diba? Such as poetry and drama, which I do less than fiction and creative nonfiction. And of course, also very important to me to be able to learn from the example of those here who are all teachers also of writing. So gusto ko rin matuto kung paano tulungan yung mga estudyante ko, how to nurture and mentor young writers. So, ayun, I'm grateful for the opportunity kasi maraming magagaling na guro dito. Salamat.
Maraming salamat sa lahat ng fellows. Now we begin with the cases where our panelists are coming from. So let's begin with Butch.
Salamat, Roland, at magandang umaga sa inyo lahat. I've said quite often in this workshop that what I'm looking for is something fresh, something that takes risks, and hopefully pulls them off. I'm looking for something beyond just competence. No? I'm looking for a certain voice or a stance, but above all, something that is for me moving and memorable. Moving and memorable, something that will stay with me for a long time after this workshop. Palagay ko parang nagiging medyo bihira na yun. Well, I'll say this during the workshop too, but I see a lot of cleverness in work, but it doesn't move me. So hit me somewhere where it will endure, and that's what I'm looking for. Salamat.
Magandang umaga, no? Ako si Bomen. Tawag dito, Yun nga, siguro kaugnay na rin ng sinabi ni Sir Butch, ay ngayon meron tayong hamon na kinakaharap doon sa artificial intelligence generated fiction or texts, literary texts. Makita natin na napakalaking kumbaga challenge, o kailangan isipin natin kung ano yung magagawa ng manunulat sa ganitong klaseng konteksto. Bagamat alam ko marami tayong mga ideya kung paano susuriin o haharapin ang mga artificially generated text, ay sa palagay ko ay may mga pagbabago sa praktika, halimbawa ng paglikha, na kailangan natin gawin kaugnay nito. At yung iba, halimbawa sabihin nila, they want to look for the really human, to really reject the artificial, etc. Pero ang mas nakita kong posibilidad ay mga hybrid forms, ng mga experimentation, dito sa ating sinasabi nating AI at sinasabi nating human generated text. Kaya ngayon, kahit pa hindi ito explicit topic ng kahit alin doon sa ating mga submission ngayong workshop na ito, sa palagay ko it's at the back of our minds, it's part of the already the zeitgeist, yung panahon natin ngayon, kung paano tayo nagsusulat at kung ano yung kakaharapin natin yung mga hamon ng pagsusulat. Nakita ko yung isang post ni Eka Corniawan, yung isang Indonesian novelist, tinanong niya si ChatGPT, gusto ko magsimula ng aking kwento ng ganito. Kumbaga, may isang pilyong lalaki na umakyat sa isang truck ng mga prutas, tapos inihian niya yung mga prutas bago dumiretso sa palengke. At ang sabi ni ChatGPT, nako, hindi kita matutulungan sa pagsusulat ng kwento mo. Dahil kailangan yung kwento na maganda ay yung may moral na katangian. Hindi ako makatulong dito sa kwentong ito. At ang sabi ni Eka, ngayon pala, kailangan pala magsimula na ako sa pagsusulat ng mga kwento na moral at yung mga makakatulong doon sa pag-aangat ng moralidad ng mga mambabasa. Kaya merong mga katuwaan na naibubunga ang interaction na ito sa ganitong klaseng mga teknolohiya. Gayunpaman, yun nga, kailangan nating isaisip ano yung mga hamon na natin para sa atin ng ganitong development. I think which is going really an important development in at least in a lot of fields, not just in literature. Right? So, kung babalik tayo kay Sir Butch, ang talagang siguro mahanap natin, what is the bigger picture behind our writing? I mean, what is really the thing that's driving us? What is the force that makes us, write things on paper? And I think that's what is important. That's what the memorable thing that is left with us after reading texts. So, ayun, yung siguro hanapin natin, what is the bigger picture behind all this writing that we're doing? What do we really want to do? Diba? So, yun lang naman, siguro we have to think about these things during this workshop.
Magandang umaga po. May mga lipunan na ang tingin sa sining ay para gamitin ito para dakilain ng dakilang lumikha. Sa kapalaran natin, hindi tayo ang lipunan yan. Maaari tayo magpahayag ng ating sarili sa magitan ng sayaw, musika, sining visual, multimedia. Pero sa kaso natin, ito yung politikan o malikhaing pagsulat. Kaya tayo nagpapahayag ng sarili dahil tayo ay may gustong maglahad. Sinulat ko na ito dahil paulit-ulit na tinatanong sa amin ito. Kaya tayo nagsusulat, di ba? May ibig tayong sabihin. Anong ating ibig sabihin? Sa Ingles, dalawang salin. What do you want to say? B, what do you mean? Paano natin ibig sabihin? Pabigkas ba? Pasulat? Kung pasulat, technical ba o malikhain? Kung malikhain, tula ba o tuluyan? Kung tula, tugmat sukat ba o malayang taludturan? Kung tuluyan, sanaysay ba? O kwento o dula? Kung sanaysay, anong sanaysay? Formal, informal, quantitative, qualitative at iba pa. Kung kwento, anong kwento? Dagli, Flash, sudden, maikli, noveleta, nobela, pambata, pang young adult, pang matanda, romantiko, realistiko, radical, sci-fi, speculative, futuristic at marami pang iba. Kung dula, anong dula? Ritual, isang yugto, ganap ang haba, straight, direct drama, interactive, o pelikula? Anong pelikula? Short, documentary, feature, experimental. Paano natin to sinabi? Kung di man pasulat, paano kung patanghal? Sige nga. Anong wika ang ginamit natin? Tama ba ang balarila, baybay, at bantas? GSP, grammar, spelling, punctuations. Sa English, yun na nga. Ang mga nabanggit ay bahagi lamang ng anyo ng akda. Ngayon, ano naman ang ating nilalaman? Dito pumapasok kung paano natin ito sasabihin o sinasabi. Committed ba ang literatura mo o committed? Kung ano ang una, ano pa rin ang ating ibig sabihin? May tunggalin ba ito? O sa pagitan ng ano? A, uri, mayaman versus mahirap. Ari, lalaki versus babae, LGBTQIA. C, lahi, puti versus may kulay. Pari, Kristiyano, langyaw versus di Kristiyano, moro, katutubo, lumad. Hari, malakas versus mahina. O may sakit, may kapansanan, o matanda, bata, sanggol o similya o sperm. Kanino ba ang akdang yan? Para sa Diyos? Kalikasan? Bayan? Kapwa-tao? Sarili? O bago ba ito? O kwan? Ilamang po.
Magandang umaga, no. Interesado ako sa sa hinahanap ko yung kwento sa likod ng paglika ng isang manunulat. No, hindi lamang yung mismong produkto niya na nakikita nating nakalathala sa papel. No, so maano ako doon, no, maantig ako, no, sa kwentong buhay ng manunulat batay sa kanyang poetika o batay sa mga informal na pakikipagkwentuhan. Na ang hinahanap ko, una, simple lang, no, maaliw ako sa pagbabasa. Ikalawa ay yung nagalingan ako sa wika. Na narinig ko na rin kanina sa mga fellows natin. Pangatlo ay hindi naging maramot ang manunulat. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng hindi naging maramot? Nung isinusulat niya ang kanyang teksto, no, mga akda niya, na may pagmamahal na pinag-ukulan niya ito ng panahon, pinag-ukulan niya ito ng kanyang galing. Kaugnay nito ay yung nakikita ko yung ambisyon at pinagsikapan itong makamit sa kanyang manuskrito. Ikaapat na nakaugnay sa hindi lang aliwang harap ko, kung hindi yung sa pagkatapos ng pagbabasa ay meron akong napulot na insight o meron akong napulot na bago sa aking binasa. No, sa dami-dami ng mga nabasa ko, ang pagdito, no, sa aking buhay bilang mabasa. At ang huli ay kaugnay nito ay nais ko ring makilala ang aking sarili pagkatapos ng lamang po.
Magandang umaga. Ako po si Vladimeir Gonzales at mabuti pinaalala na ating workshop director yung gabay na saan nagmumula. Sa aking kaso po, 3 punto yung pinagmumulan ko. Una ay bilang isang kasapi sa ICW na naging administrator din, na kalakhan ng ginawa nung nakaraang halos 3 taon ay background work. Ibig sabihin, nakikipag-usap sa tech team natin, creative team, para bumuo ng mga streamed programs gaya ng workshop na online last 2 years, mga book launch, video documentaries at iba pa. At dun po sa karanasan na yun, ang pwede ako magpatotoo na tunay itong nakabuo ng mga matibay na ugnayan, mga bagong kaibigan, mga makabulang relasyon sa mga bagong manunulat, sa mga guro ng panitikan, sa mga institusyon. At actually, nagkaroon nga tayo ng panahon na hindi po nala-livestream yung ibang programa, hinanap po talaga ng ating mga kasama na mga naging bagong kaalyado sa panitikan yung mga programang ito. Kaya nagpapasalamat po ako dun sa grupong ito dahil ang ating pagkakasundo ay muling ibahagi yung karanasan kasi tunay pong may epekto, positibong impact sa ating, ang tawag natin minsan beneficiaries, pero gusto nating isipin na siyempre kaibigan natin sila. At yung pagbati nga rin po dun sa mga kaibigan nating nanonood ngayon ng live stream. Pangalawa, alam naman natin na kaya tayo naging online mostly noong nakaraang 2-3 taon dahil sa konteksto ng COVID-19. Inaasahan ko, interesado kong mabasa sana kung paano isinulat. Tingin ko importante talaga yun na kahit na mukhang tapos na ang COVID-19 o parang patapos na, interesado akong mabasa, gusto kong mapakinggan paano ninyo itinala, paano ninyo sinikap na matandaan ang inyong karanasan at ang mga kwento may kaugnayan sa COVID-19. Tapos yung pangatlo po na expectations, kaya gusto ring maranasan, si May naman din po yung nagsabi, so parang magbabounce off ako sa sinabi na totoo naman papalakpakan ang mga kasama nating manunulat na may clarity of vision, hahangaan at pupurihin yung gagap o may full grasp na sa kanilang poetics. Pero tingin ko may mahika rin at siguro may appeal, may halina for me yung pag-amin na hindi mo rin alam yung ginagawa mo. Yung isa nating kasamang fellow dati, si Arlo Mendoza, nung estudyante pa lang siya, na siyang ginamit na paglalarawan, yung pagkautal, gaya ng nangyari sa atin, kapag nagpapaliwanag. Minsan tawag na mga kasama manulat na titisod. Tingin ko normal ito at isang bagay din na magandang kasabikan kung paano sinisikap natin magpaliwanag sa gitna ng ating mga pagkabulol, pagkautal, pagkatisod at iba pa. Yung struggle with language, struggle na isawi ka yung experience. Isa nga nagsabi na lahat naman ng sinasawikan natin ay akto ng pag-ibig at isa rin doon sa akto ng pag-ibig yung pinapakita mong nahihirapan ka, pero sisikap mo pa rin gawing malinaw. At while minsan hindi natin mauunawaan yung pinapaksa ng mga kasama natin, definitely makakaugnay, makakakabit tayo dun sa familiarity ng struggle. Kasi at certain points, kilala, alam, naunawa natin yung struggle na yun. At siguro yun yung gusto kong i-celebrate din, yung akto ng nahihirapan pero sinisikap magsalita. Kasi ibig sabihin nun, for me, ay may pagmamahal tayo dun sa ginagawa natin. At lagi namang may binubunga maganda yung pagdiriwang na ating pagmamahal sa wika at sa iba pang bagay.
Nung tinitingnan ko kanina yung umpisa natin, yung mga manunulat, nalungkot ako. Kasi paalala yun sa akin, matanda na ako. Napapagod na rin ako. Kuminsan yung mga gusto ko isulat, nakakalimutan ko na rin At nanginginig na rin yung kamay ko pag pipinta. Pero pag tinignan ko yung aking opisina, sandamakmak na manuskrito. Kuminsan mga manuskrito for judging, lalo na nung nakaraan na kalabo-labo yung mata ko. Yung mga librong dapat i-publish na natin, bukod pa sa yung pinababasa ng iba-iba pang press, yung mga entry sa Palangka, entry sa National Book Award, walang katapusang pagbabasa. Babasahin mo rin yung papel ng mga estudyante. Gagawa ka pa ng lectures kung saan ka magsasalita. Ang ibig kong sabihin, sa mahabang panahon, mukhang ang natitira na lang sa akin pangunawa. Nung bata ako, pag nagalit ako, tuwan-tuwa yung mga tao pumapalakpak kasi angry young man yung image ko Ngayon, pag sumigaw ako, nagbubulasan. At may sorpresya ako isang araw, pupuntahan ako ng barangay. Tumigil ka. Pag nagbasa ako ngayon ng mga manuskrito ninyo, ang ibig ko sabihin sa napapagod ako. Pero ba't ako nandito dito? Bakit ko saan workshop ako nandito dito? Sapagkat ang ginagawa namin ngayon ay nasa nyo ng passing the torch. Kayo naman, isang araw, kayo naman ang magsisipagturo, ang magtutuloy. Sa pangunawa, mag-umpisa ka sa ano yung panulat. Yung panulat, tala lang yun Pag maganda yan, panitikan yan. Pag hindi, wala pang archives. Kaya sa pag-unawa, mahalaga rin pati yung ayaw niyong isulat. Sa panahon ng Kastila, 300 taon, isulat niyo lang pag-ibig hanggang ngayon. And therefore, yung pag-ibig mo na yan, yung telenovela mo na yan, yung Korean novela mo na yan, kahit na yung fake news mo na yan, yung mga misinformation ay tala rin, may sinasabi rin yun. Ito ay mga tala ng pagtatakip, yung mga hindi natin dapat isulat, hindi natin dapat ipabasa. Ito yung dahilan kung ba tayo naghaharap-harap. Kailangang ulit-ulitin natin ang ginawa ng mga bayani natin sapagkat ang pambansang alaala ay araw-araw binubura. Kanino mag-uumpisa ngayon ang pang-unawa? Mag-uumpisa tayo sa pang-unawa para makita kung gaano kalaki at lawak ang problema. Kapag nagawa na natin yon, hindi naman manifesto yung sinusulat natin. Panitikan. Doon tayo mag-uusap. Bakit mo sinasabi sa akin ito? Kung pag-ibig ka rin ang laman ng ano mo, nung sinusulat mo, pwede naman tala pa rin yun Pero bakit yan ang pinababasa mo? Pangunawa pa rin. Kaya sa dulo, hahanapin ko yun Ano yung halaga? Dahil nga matanda na ako, pwede ba kung papabasahin mo ako niyan, bigyan mo na lang ako ng samboteng beer, magkwentuhan na lang tayo. Mahalaga ang bawat pagbabasa. Kasi meron kang itinatala. Kung ang hinahanap mo ay pangit na panulat, history lang yan Sorry mga historian. Sorry, Dominic. Saka yung isa pang kung yan yung imagination, yung creativity. Pag hinanap mo yung damdamin ng panahon, yung damdamin, pati yung angas, pati yung galit ng panahon, nakatala yun nasa panitikan natin. Yun yung halaga kung bakit tayo nagsasanay, kung bakit tayo nagpapalitan ng hindi lamang laman, kundi pati estilo. Sapagkat ang bawat ambag ng humusay na manunulat na produkto ng workshop ay isang akto ng pagbuhay sa ating national memory. Magsulat, magsulat. Magbasa, magbasa. Makakaraos tayo. Salamat.
Ano pa nga ba ang idaragdag ko sa konversasyon na ito kung nasabi na ng halos lahat ang mga nais ko ring sabihin. Pero gusto kong isipin na kaya ako kasama ngayon dito dahil natutunan ko ang sining ng pagsisimula ng mga mahihirap na pag-usapan o mga difficult conversations. Sa personal, nanggaling yon sa mahabang yugto na tumahimik ka dyan, huwag ka na magsalita. So natutunan ko na maging pasibo at napatalas ko ang aking pagmamasid. At hindi niyo maitatanong, walang tigil akong sa itsura ng mga tao habang nagsasalita. Tinatala ko talaga kung nagmamatch yung kanilang mga salita sa kanilang iniisip. Dahil alam natin na hindi magkakaugnay. Hindi sumasabay, hindi choreograph ang mga sinasabi natin sa mga kinikilos natin. At fascinated ako doon. At tingin ko, yun ang tungkulin ng mga manunulat. Itala yung mga disparities, yung mga contradictions, at siguro lahat sila parang nagsalita na wari bang ang akda ay tapos na. At gusto kong sabihin na lagi itong hindi tapos. Hindi ko alam kung makaka-relate kayo dito, pero malimit kahit publish na ang isang akda, kuminsan napupuri, kuminsan napupulaan, ang pakiramdam ko ay parang I could have done better at hindi ako laging kontento dun sa natatapos ko. At tingin ko, mahalaga yon na hindi ka makontento at palagi mong hinahamon ang iyong sarili. Kanina rin ay nabanggit yung isang key phrase na, o baka akala ko lang key phrase yun kasi may umaandar na subtitle sa diwa ko. At ganun din ako kung mag-isip kapag nag-uusap ang mga tao, may subtitle na parang ito talaga ang ibig nilang sabihin. So ako ay galing rin sa pamilya na nakita ko ang praktika at disiplina at kontradiksyon at mga kahinaan ng pagsusulat. At tingin ko yun ang maambag ko, hindi ko man diretsahang sabihin na ito ang epekto ng paglaan ng buhay sa panulat. At hindi man, marami naman tayong sinusulat tungkol sa pagkakapantay-pantay. Ang ama ko halimbawa ay sumulat ng tungkol sa paano ba kukunin ang lupang sinasaka o kung paano magiging pantay ang turingan ng mga tao. At hanggat hindi yun nangyayari, hanggat laging merong hindi nakakapagsalita, narito tayo at nag-uusap. So, salamat sa generosity ng mga tao sa pagbabasa at pakikitalamitam sa atin ngayon. Yun lang po. Salamat.
What I'm going to, briefly, say here, I'm going to be very brief because I'm going to talk again in that extension. What's wrong with this? Anyway, what I'm going to say is, I'm going to speechify na naman in that extension lecture. So, I hope you will listen naman to me, no, in that extension lecture. What I'm going to say here now is a very short thing lang. No, I don't want to cut too much time. No? Anyway, the theme of the workshop is writing the world. What do you mean, writing the world? Huh? You know what that means for me? No, that's what it means to me. No? Oh, by the way, in this workshop, we respect each other's opinion. Huh? Okay, we respect. Look up the word dogma in the dictionary. No? The original meaning of dogma is, I think it's Greek, no? Opinion. Yeah, dogma originally means opinion. Okay? Nobody here in the workshop is dogmatic. No, it's all opinion. Okay? When we comment on your short story poem, it is my opinion. Huh? It is how I was struck by your poem or your short story. I can also be very frank, no, without being unkind. No, I will always say, this is what I got from your story or your poem. This is how I understood it. No, okay, that's how I will criticize. No? And then I will also ask you, you were asking me, so I have the right to ask you also. Di ba? Then I will ask you, what really do you want to communicate to your readers in your story or in your poem? What do you really want to communicate to your reader? When I recited to you, I teach my child, no? Okay, you can ask me the question, what do you want the listeners to understand from what you just recited? No? Okay? And what I want the reader to understand from what I recited is, we have is writing the world. That's what I want. When you write, you are writing the world. In a manner of speaking, you are writing fiction. You are writing the world. Because instead of writing the world, I would say writing the future. Because the future is first shaped by words. Really? The future is first shaped by words? Yes, because we have nothing but our words to express anything. I'm done.
Yeah, sometimes I ask myself, why do I keep coming to these workshops? I don't know how long I've been doing this, no, and now I do it twice a year because I do it for UST in here. But I think I know the answer. It is a way of keeping in touch with the young writers and what they're doing. And that's the first thing that because we're supposed to say, what do we expect of this workshop? I would say it's not what I expect, it's what I hope for. So the first thing I hope for is something new. A new way of looking at things, a new way of saying things, not of course a new topics. Very rarely for example, yung AI, no? That's a new topic really. I'm not necessarily expecting that, just a new way of approaching things. That's the first thing. The second thing I'm hoping for is a certain level of skill with language. Because you are not beginning writers, no? I hesitate to say you are in mid-career because the only thing that we ask for you to qualify for this is that you have published one book. That's not mid-career. That's still the beginning, but not the very, very beginning, no? So I do expect a certain level of skill, at the very least, no? And then, Butch was talking about what I think is emotional power. He wants to be moved. That is a bonus for me. If you also have emotional power along with a certain level of skill with language, then that's wonderful. The other two things I expect have to do with attitude. The first one is openness. I think when you enter a gathering of this sort, you have to be above all else open to other ways of doing things, which may be different from yours, and which may, in fact, for you not be pleasant or not be agreeable, but you're at least open. We had a discussion kanina about K-pop and Korean telenovelas, where I was the only one taking the position that I don't like them. But I'm open to at least listening to those who like them. My idea kasi of art is that you are distinct from everybody else, no? My idea of the very good entertainer, I already mentioned it before, is someone like David Bowie. There's nobody else in the world like him. So hindi ko maintindihan yung art where everybody acts like everybody else, sings like everybody else, looks like everybody else. I don't see the point of art like that. But in the spirit of openness, pinakinggan ko sila. Yun, that I expect that kind of attitude. And finally, most important and not always easy to find, self-awareness. I think it's very important that we know at every stage of our writing career where we are. In terms of what has already been done before and what may yet come, no? We might think that what we're doing is revolutionary or totally new only because we don't read enough. And it's actually been done before. So that's the last thing that I expect, no? Kind of self-awareness and the honesty to face up to it. To say, like myself, for instance, I hope I know where I stand in terms of my contemporaries, no? Who is it who has already done it all before me, and a lot of the people here have done it all before me and much better than me. We have national and national artists in our presence, so obviously he's up there, right? So I would measure myself against that standard, and that's what I mean by self-awareness.
Sorry, Charlson. Just before you, Jimmy wanted to say a statement, another statement.
one sentence lang. Good writing, ano to? Wala. Good writing is rewriting.
Oh, finally. Actually, all of the above. Yun ang advantage ng last. But now I know why I keep coming back to this workshop. Finally, someone brought a piano with her. Been waiting for it for 20 years. Pero siguro yung susugan ko lang ng konti yung kwento ni Joey about Rolando T. Kasi may nagkwento naman sa akin na sa CCP workshop. So after they nag-break, so lumabas sila lahat sa damuhan, no? May manuscript, may mga pala pa yata binigay. And then they started digging. So they started digging. So akala nila may exercise, tree planting. So after they dug, sabi ni Rolando, sige, pwede nilang ilibing yung mga so kwento yun. So I don't know how true it is. Pero ganun siya, di ba? Yung dramatic, always trying to shock you into getting real, di ba? Okay, so laging si Franz naman, laging getting real. Di ba? So wala na masyadong drama ngayon sa workshop. Mababait na kami. At live na sa Facebook. So wala na naman kami yung patungkol sa amin later on. Pero hopefully we can still enjoy it, learn from each other, and be inspired, no? Kasi, and continue writing, no? Hopefully, after all of this, kasi yun naman ang point, no? Not for people to stop writing, but to continue, no? Yun lang.
Dalawang quotation na magandang pag-isipan sa simula ng workshop. Yung una mula kay Thomas Mann. The writer is that person for whom writing is more difficult than it is for others. Okay. Pangalawa mula kay T.S. Eliot. Siguro alam niyo na to. The purpose of literature is to turn blood into ink. Okay? Ayan.
Ayun. Salamat. Sa akin naman, susundan ko si Vim sa pagbabasa, no? Parang taxonomic reading, i-place mo kagad yung text. Saan ba ito kasama? Siyempre sa form kagad, ano? And then, ang basic ay medyo ano kasi sa ng mga Russian formalists ang sabi ay literature naman ay pagmamaster ng mga tropes, ng mga dati na ginagamit na nag-i-exist na literary ang tawag literary kasangkapang panitikan, ano, literary device, ayan, sorry. At ang pagmamaster dito ay tinitimbang mo yung text o yung drama, nobela, tula doon sa dati nang nag-exist before, and then sasabihin mo kung hindi naman siya dahil kinokopya ng bagong writer yung dati na, kundi parang na-master ba niya itong technique na ito, and then meron ba siyang ginagawang bago, o kung wala naman, parang ine-echo lang niya, no? So yung siguro yung hinahanap ko bilang reader, merong kombinasyon ng luma at ng bago. Kumbaga merong ginagawang bago yung young writer at meron siyang breakthrough, no? At kasi doon mo makikita yung originality, pag-iisip niya, gusto niyang gawing bago, natutuhan niya yung mundo, no? At meron siyang dinidiskursong panibago. At sa likod nito, kasi mga salita lang yon, pero alam natin na behind the literary device, behind the mastery of technique, meron doong isang katauhan, merong isang imagination na nag-work. At ang purpose, kasama na lahat doon, emotion, greatness, erudition, lahat nung natutuhan ng writer, ginuhos niya doon sa work niya. At sabi nga ng mga formalists, yung kanyang isip nakatira doon sa mga words, sa mga letters, pero behind those letters, behind those sentences, paragraphs, ay may isang imahinasyon, may isang tao na parang kinuha niya lahat ng detalye, kwento, grand narrative ng kanyang kinabibilangang grupo at meron siyang ginagawang pagpapaliwanag, pagpapalaki, pagpare-resonate ng mga concerns ng kanyang reader. At kapag nagawa yun nung writer, yung hinahanap ko, hahangaan ko siya. Pwede kung hindi masyado mga ginawa niya, okay lang. Kung pwedeng, kung babaan pa ng konti, hindi yung salitang adjective na hindi pwedeng banggitin ay para sa kanya. Yung okay lang, okay lang. And then kung kahanga-hanga, mahangaan ko siya, baka may love pa ako sa kanya. Yun.
Ang naging qualification for you to enter this workshop, like those that enter the mid-career workshop phase of the UP National Writers Workshop, is that your first book project or your prior creative body of work has come into some form of recognition, no? And then ito yung, kaya yun ang naging entry point then for us to consider yung manuscript na pinapropose yung gawin, your next book project. There seems to be a kind of affinity between filmmaking and writing of this kind, no? With regards to Peker Galiaga and his first successful film, Oro Plata Mata, Jim Lebiran and Tribu, who is also workshopped here for his other projects, no? Si Oreo Solito, also workshopper here. Ang pagdadalaga ni Maximo Oliveros and Alvin Yapan, so nag-workshop din dito sa kanyang first great film, yung Ang Sayaw ng Dalawang Kaliwang Paa. Ang Sayaw ng Dalawang Kaliwang Paa. So, ang difference dito ay no one remembers their second film. Ang difference sa writing na sa writers naman in their next book projects, there is a clear attempt at maintaining the recognition of the first recognized book, no? And we will try to also do that as a panelist, no? So it's already been mentioned that I'll also be looking for a kind of imperative, a kind of drive in your craft, no? Ibig sabihin ay pushing the craft, the form to its limits, no? A kind of, aside from the form, it's also ways to push the project to its unusual, interesting limits or other ways of writing or doing this project. Para ma-consider din yung meaning, yung ganon klaseng alternatives, no? So when we talk about new insights, yung insight na to should also match yung kind of insight coming from the newness also of the craft na binabanggit. At hindi difficult sa inyo yun kasi nabanggit naman, you're coming from another generation, a younger generation of writers. So likely may dala na kayong something new into the table or into the fold of Philippine literature. Pero kailangan din yung newness na yun, very purposive, the ways in which it was crafted, the ways in which it will be messaged. Of course, parang so what we will expect also, it's a newness also, nouveau, may mga bagong sinasabi, bagong paraan ng pagsasabi. Ang nangyari din sa filmmaking when it went digital, it's that it democratized the medium and the reception of filmmaking, of films itself, di ba? Kaya nga ngayon, streaming na at hindi na kailangan pumunta sa sinihan. So there's also this kind of possibility for this workshop to also see beyond your second project. Nabanggit ni Jing na after a first book in this era, likely it's still a kind of beginning, pero medyo a different kind of beginning writer pa rin kayo. But on the other hand, think of it as a kind of there's a horizon, a larger horizon after this second project. That so it allows us to peep into that kind of new, larger, wider horizon of possibilities, or other possibilities of crafting your next other projects. No? So, hindi naman kailangan ibuhos dito sa second book ang lahat. Pero dapat ay meron pang season in which to plant newer projects and to grow them until a forest of books, a body of your works will be realized, similar to what has happened with great filmmakers. So maraming salamat. With this, we end earlier, so let's do a break until 10 o'clock and resume at 10 o'clock. We'll also have a longer lunch with this kind of brevity of our discussion. Just for the merienda, no? We come into this season of the UP Writers Workshop always with a kind of celebration that pumapatak siya around this period, no? Which so happens to also be the birthday of Bienvenido Lumbera, which we always celebrate for most part dito sa UP Writers Workshop. And of course, we thank him for spending his birthday with his writerly family rather than his biological family, which is also very meaningful for him. And part of that celebration is also this cake that's only done in Baguio, which is a strawberry shortcake. No? We also celebrate the birthday of our staff, December 9, no? Oh, rather April 9. See, Denise is also celebrating. Has also celebrated her birthday. So, yeah, Sun Session Road cake ito, Sun Session Road Bakery.
Bisco.
So let's partake of this cake and it's celebration. May announcement si Sy.
National Writers Workshop for this year. The session will be the novel that he is planning to write, no, or started to write, which is A Journey to the East, no? Riccio, no? That is supposedly based on reinvention of previous text tungkol kay Vittorio Riccio, no? 15th century missionary from Italy, Dominican, who came at the time to this part of the world, no? Manila, Xiamen, and Taiwan. So those of you who have read, no, see itong previous book of Dominic, no, the Natural History of Empire, which was a finalist in last Madrigal Gonzales competition. Also, I think it won an award in Ateneo. No, his work, no, that this thing he's trying to do now is not entirely different from some of his works here. No, he is a writer who's trying to work on text, no, on history of text. So a kind of reinvention or encounter, you know, with history as written. So maybe the questions that are being asked is what is fiction and what is fact? No? Who is the writer? Who is the historian? No? So he likes to employ, you know, history as an academic discipline, no, to mimic the form, no, even the use of the footnotes and all that. No. So a little background a bit, no, on this sort of writing. When I was a young man years ago, I read a book, no, called The Separate Factor by John Barth. No. Separate is the it's based on a poem. It's a take on a poem, The Subject Factor, or A Voyage to Maryland, a satire. That was published in 1708, no, by the English-born poet Ebenezer Cook. So there was a poet, Ebenezer Cook, and that's probably all everyone knew about him. No? So see, John Barth took this idea, this poem by this rather obscure poet, and ran with it. No? He fictionalized it. So yun sa plot, a bit of the plot. It's a satirical epic on the colonization of Maryland, no? Based on that poet, Ebenezer Cook, who wrote the poem. And it's been described as an anatomy, no? A kind of satire on which a mass of information is brought to bear on the subject being satirized. No? It's so long, no? It's like 800 pages or something, packed with details, which he reinvents, no? And which I think the potentially this work of Dominic is going to have to do. So in Pantoja, Ebenezer is the son of Andrew Cook, you know, an English merchant who owns a tobacco plantation in Maryland. So along with his sister, Ebenezer is tutored privately by a young man named Henry Burlingame III. While he is studying at Cambridge University, he is reunited with Henry, who reveals his past life as an orphan, a traveling musician, a seaman, and that he was saved his mother and daughter from pirates, no? And persuades Ebenezer to go to London. And then in London, si Ebenezer declares his love for a prostitute, Joantos, but refuses to pay her fee and confesses to being a virgin. No? And then he goes to visit Charles Calvert, Lord Baltimore, who is the governor of Maryland, and asked to be given a commission. So he is made the poet laureate of Maryland. So he decides to go to Maryland and sing his praises while striving to remain a virgin. So he's a bit of a missionary in that sense. He will go to the New World, the land of the heathen, but preserve his virginity, his innocence. So it's an inversion of that idea. And the missionaries were, like Riccio, they were, they worship, the Virgin Mary, they were consecrated to the Virgin Mary, so they had to remain virgins. In this case, he's actually, it's kind of a prostitute, so he invents the idea. But later on, of course, in the New World, he marries Joantos. So he goes on his adventures in the New World, with encounters the Native Americans, Pocahontas, so marami itong tao. But they go into more. It's the foundational myths of America on its head, yung parang how the West was won, pero iba, it's like his disillusionment, so it becomes a satire. So it's actually entertaining, most of it. So I read it, pero at some point, of course, you ask, why am I reading this? No, it's funny, but then it's all a game, and it's a kind of invention of what people know about America. So, but this is also this whole literary postmodernism. So, ang ano niya is really yung the use of metafiction, and the unreliable narrator, self-reflexivity, intertextuality. It's using text against text, and so often it thematizes is political and social issues. But itong part ng itong literary postmodernism was also part of a larger counterculture in America during that period, in the 60s, where first there was the civil rights movement, LSD, things were changing then. So dito sa literature with the postmodern writing, kasama rin si Thomas Pynchon with his also big book na whose book was this big one, yung Ravage's Rainbow, which I couldn't wrap my head around, so I gave up. Sa Pilipinas, it was also influenced, maybe writers like sila Cesar Aquino, Jolico Cuadra, and si Crip Yuson, whose book, yung Great Philippine Energy Jungle Cafe, is a bit of this, but the main proponent of this sort of postmodern writing, as far as I know, would be si Gina Apostol, who eventually went to Boston and became a student of John Barth, and her novels would have this sort of makita mo yan yung kanyang Raimundo Mata, where the action actually takes place in the footnotes. So maraming footnoting yan. So I think that's part of the influence. itong ng project na ito. So it has certain questions. Anyway, meron siyang, ang pinag-usapan natin yung nasa kit, no? Kasi meron siyang, I think si Dominic gave an addendum which doesn't seem to jive, no, with what is here. So what we're discussing is what we're given here, no? Ito yung nasa kit natin. So it's a kind of reinvention, no, of those characters that are actually real, no? They're historical actors, no? Si Riccio, Coxinga, but they're not in our popular imagination. They're obscure, or you have to be a specialist, no, to know them. The missionary who was active in this area, no? So yung question of what is Southeast Asia anyway, no? What is nation? They're all inventions, diba? They're all inventions and colonial inventions, diba? Si Coxinga is like this. We know a bit about him, no, in our history as a pirate, no, according to the Spanish. But if you go to Shaman, he's a hero, no? He's a museum dedicated to him. He's like a folk deity there, no? He was the main terrorist, no, who fought the Manchus who were coming in then, no? So he remains a kind of folk hero, no? So he tries to ask these questions, and then so ang tanong ko siguro is whether, how much has been written, no? Kasi yung nag-abandon si Don, parang nagbago niya sa kanya, anong gusto niya gawin. Or it's not here, no? Dun sa first chapter. Yung siya manuwas nila. And then, of course, the larger question, I think, really for all of us is whether we ourselves are in this countercultural moment, no? At this point, no, after all that's happened, no, the past year, and then yung ChatGPT nga, no, if you ask ChatGPT how to install a novel, baka may gano'n. Pwede ko rin iwas, no? Gano'n yung mga text, no? And then, mga labay sa mga discourses, we're actually very working, no? That one of the academic discourses, for instance, no? But outside the academic, no? Ay ni Hitler, na tatay ni Marcos na may ginto, di ba? So, all these tropes that are swirling around, no? The culture, in fact, no? And how do you deal with them, di ba? The realities, no? The realities, actually. They cause those tropes in some way. I think you can disempower only by employing, no? And demystifying them somehow. So it's a challenge, I think, for us, and maybe that the novel is trying to trace but yeah, I think it sort of works on that yung postmodernist tradition na yun, no? Nabalik ko si Crit, no? In the meditation, dito, battle, in 1984, I was with the experimental cinema of the Philippines, no? And then, ang unang nanalo dun sa experimental short film festival, contest, experimental. 8 million ito, no? During those days, ginagamit pa namin yung celluloid, no? 8 millimeter, maliit na, with a movie called Shaman Wars, no? By Wilson. And it featured si Kidlataynik. No? I think they shot you either in Sagada or here in Baguio. Si Kidlataynik was in his bag. He was standing on some rock doing his shamanic stuff. No? Ang kalaban niya si the late boy Yachenko, who was doing his Chinese martial arts. No? So sila yung it's called Shaman Wars. I think they were throwing these invisible thunderbolts at each other. I don't know what happened finally. They think they both died. So yun yung Shaman Wars niya. Which I just reminded of with this. No? So all these using of these tropes, how do we use them? These are realities outside maybe our world. Totoo sa ibang tao, di ba? Kaya nanalo sa election, lahat niyan. And then, so there's a lot of literature, I guess, also, one of the things that magandang usapan. Ano ba? So, ito naman, that I'd like to bring up, maybe si Dominic can talk a bit about that airport.
Hello? Hello? Can I be heard? Yes? Okay. Hello? Okay. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Sir Charlson. Actually, just to... Hello? Hello? Oh, is that better? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Sir Charlson. Just to answer some of the... Before I start with the presentation, just to answer some of the earlier questions, about 60% of it has been written, although that's going to be severely rewritten at some point. But in terms of the synopsis, to my mind, there's no difference between what's in the synopsis and what's in the first chapters. It just so happened that the synopsis wasn't included in the kit, so it had to be sent later. But those are the chapters that's meant for the story that was put in the synopsis, the 3-part synopsis. But yeah, so I've already said a lot in the poetics, actually, about my kind of thematic conceptualization of things. So I'll try to keep this one short and just focus on an aspect of the project that I didn't talk about in the poetics. So I think everyone in this room would agree that after enough years of writing or trying to write, there are certain lines, phrases, or responses from your readers that sear deep, ready to jump back out when you least expect it. And I'd like to share with you 3 of my own. The first was said... Hello? The first was said to me a long time ago by a professor of literature who also wrote fiction. I asked this professor if he could give me feedback to one of my stories, and this is what he said. Next slide. You have good grammar. So the comma there is also in the right place. Nothing follows, or at least nothing positive. What makes things a little worse is that, technically speaking, I often don't actually have good grammar, because, I mean, all writers are prone to making typos, part of the trade, but I commit typos at such an egregious rate that my own wife, early in our relationship, started calling me the typo prince, and she still laughs at basically every other message I send her, because basically every other message has a typo. Now, the second comment is much more recent, and it's the aggregate of many comments that I received since the publication of my book. Next slide. That's the book. It's the same book there. Nice cover. Okay. After the book was published, a few people actually told me that they liked it, which was nice. Although more than once what they said in full was more like this. Next slide. It's good, but I don't think I understood it. Now that one wasn't so bad, at least, I mean, take into account the fact that the second statement was said much more often than the first.
It's not that bad. Many of my own favorite books are books also that after I finish reading them, I walk away feeling like there's a lot I missed and didn't manage to understand. So I just put those instead, depending on the facial expression of the person who said it. But let's get to the third comment, the more important one. So this third comment was
So I don't want to say who this writer is, but basically the context is that I had sent them, if I remember correctly, around 3 of my stories to read, and to the best of my recollection, I don't think they liked them. To the best of my recollection, if the said writer is watching now and remembers that experience differently, I didn't say who you were, so it's okay. Anyway, a few days later, we were talking about some other story written by some random European author, and I cracked a joke that I don't actually remember anymore. But after cracking the joke, the writer not only laughed at my joke, but also said, and this isn't exactly verbatim, but this is how I remember it. Next slide. They said, "Dom, you're so funny in real life. Why are your stories devoid of humor?" And that brings us to the work I'm trying to finish today. So I don't believe that humor is necessary in fiction. Obviously not. There are literally libraries full of powerful, mysterious, heartbreaking, and humorless novels that prove that it is not. And I'm also not going to try to write humorously forever after this. In fact, even while I'm writing this, I'm also writing some other stories that have pretty much no humor in them at all. But humor is a skill, I think, and I suspect, depending on the project, that it may be a useful one. And when I first started piecing together this specific project, I realized that given its ultimately tragic content, because the tragedy will ramp up as the chapters go along. That's not that obvious in the beginning, but it gets pretty tragic towards the end. Given its ultimately tragic content, and given how instinctively resistant many people are when it comes to reading about history, humor may be particularly useful. The humor is not necessarily easy. At least I find it's not necessarily easy. Humor tends to be very context dependent. As film critics have known for some time, action films tend to transfer easily across borders. Comedy films do not. Comedy tends to be rooted heavily in either language or culture. And as far as linguistic and cultural context is concerned, these are mine. Next slide. So I write in English because the results are always really bad when I try otherwise. I write in the Philippines, where English is usually a second language at best. And or I write in Southeast Asia, where English is even rarer in the Philippines, except maybe in Singapore. So what to do? Well, I don't know. And that's why I'm talking about this here. So I can ask you all what you think. The excerpt I submitted is my current solution. It's a solution based on the mixing together of a few literary models that I find personally funny. The models may or may not be obvious, and a great deal of the jokes I wrote are still, in many ways, heavily based on language and cultural knowledge. But I hope nevertheless that the result is funny, and I'm open to hearing what everyone else thinks. Perhaps the one additional concrete idea I can point to is this. As I said earlier, comedy films don't tend to travel borders very well, but there is one great exception. In the era of silent film, the greatest star of them all, famous not only in the US but across the world, was a comedian. Next slide. Slapstick is sometimes derided as one of the lower forms of comedy, but the physical humor of Chaplin was famous not only because it was funny, but because it commented on the grave conditions of the world around him. Is this a possible solution to the problem? The comedy of action or the action of comedy? Is this the reason why, for example, even though my own Mandarin Chinese education is still in progress and my Hokkien is almost non-existent, I still find many of the stories in Interlink the West hilarious. Is that the reason? Is this the way? I hope so, because otherwise this novel will take much longer than I thought. Thank you.
Okay, so the floor is open for comments or questions. You have questions that you want to be enlightened about. Anyone? Si Jun. Hindi ko alam ito, kaya earlier
kanina, tinatanong ko si Jane yung mga terms. Kasi I suspect, niluloko ako ng trabaho na nag-enjoy naman ako, no? Tawa ako ng tawa. Yung una, yung parsidy, na yung may warning siya dun So, he's setting the tone. Saan ako dadalhin ito? Yung tatanong ko, merong bagong literary movement na nabubuo yung sa UP tsaka sa Ateneo, at least sa fiction writing. Hindi ko alam kung sinasadya ito o what. How do you categorize a work like this? Maybe targets ko sabihin ko. Tinatanong ko, meron bang historical dystopia? Kasi contradiction. So, hinanap namin kung ano yung nawala. But ano man yung sagot, ano man yung mga diskurso in between, one thing clear, meron itong attempt na merong sila Arlo ganyan din magsulat Kaya nga yung pinansin mo si Ananda Tour dito, sabi ko, parang nakikita ko si Tirto na yung mag-uumpisa ng isang pambansang diskurso ng yung si Minky. May ganun to Meron kang gustong buuin, pero you have to destroy something. Kaya nga natanong ko kung dystopia to And then, meron ka rin attempt na yung sirain yung
malimit dinadramatize yung pagkopya, yung pagbuo doon sa real event. Ito naman ay very particular on how to destroy that particular historical event. So, in the end, yung mukhang yung trend ng fiction writing ngayon, yung Ateneo ay merong retelling na ginagawa. Yung writing ng coming from the region, of course, ang reference ko lang English and Filipino, may retelling na ginagawa. Yung ugat nilang lahat, parang yung kay Bonus magiging ganun din Ano yung simula? Ano yung mga simula? And from there, yung while you destroy, kasi pag dystopia, distraction Pero dito may hope meron kang nakikitang binubuo. So, iniisip ko, proseso ba to ng identity building? Napansin ko ito, naging very pronounced nung panahon ni Duterte. Yung tuloy-tuloy yung ayoko na. And while you are rejecting yung ganong notion ng power, you create yung another, alimbawa yung kay Arlo na yung artificial dictator, artificial library. Ito artificial history. Parang si Bomin din yung artificial revolution niya nung iba-ibang levels. Parang, which is a good sign. Which is a good sign na yung sa panahon ng disinformation, merong new form of protest na nagaganap. Kaya nga, gusto ko mabasa ito buo Saka ngayon ko rin lang nalaman na ikaw pala yung author nung natural history na ini-imagine ko. Kaya ako hindi binili yun. Iniisip ko natural history talaga. Hindi novela. Sorry for that. Anyhow, nag-enjoy ako. Ito yung binabanggit ko kanina. Pinipilit ko intindihin yung gusto mong sabihin. At on the other end, gusto ko naman nag-enjoy din ako kasi pinaparusaan mo ako Imagine kung hindi na kita naiintindihan, hindi pa ako nag-enjoy. Gusto ko yung trabaho mo.
Jimmy.
I have of course, no. What I want to talk about Dominic, is my own take or my own understanding of what you have written. That's what I'm going to talk about. It is my own understanding, my own take on what he has written. Yeah? Okay, it's my own take. I think this is what opinion. I think it is a philosophical inquiry. That's what I think. It is a philosophical. Actually, one unusual thing about this novel is there are footnotes, and the footnotes are sort of entertaining, no? Sort of teasing the reader, because he will address the reader at the end of what I have read. He would say, "Reader, I hope you go to the next chapter or whatnot, so that you will know something more." No? It's sort of teasing the reader. No? So now, as I said, I think it is a philosophical inquiry. Oh, an inquiry about what? Aha! It is an inquiry. What is reality? So that's why I think it is a philosophical inquiry. What is reality? What is the reality of Asia, Southeast Asia, Philippines? And then, the real question, I think, Dominic, the real question is there a difference between fiction as literary work and history as historical research? Is there a difference? That's my take lang, Dominic. That's how I understood. That's what I understood about all that we can read, because we're not reading the whole novel, right? That's all I can understand. No? Okay. Now, this is what I have to say. Now, in fiction as well as in history, and I really distinguish in fiction and in history, the reader of fiction or of history will have to imagine what he reads, because it is the imagination that makes real what he reads. That's all. That's all I have to say. Yeah. You know why that's all I have to say? Because I have an extension lecture. And I'm going to say everything I know about what I just said. I will discuss that in my lecture. Okay. Yeah.
Si Bowman muna, and then Butch, and then Romel.
Magandang umaga, at pagbati kay Dom sa kanyang sinisimulang nobela. Siyempre, nalaman ko ngayon na halos patapos na siya sa nobela, kaya siguro ang doon, at sana ay kahit siguro may mga pahabol tayo sa pagkabuhan, makatulong pa rin doon sa pagtatapos niya ng nobela. So, siguro gusto kong puntahan yung ideya nga ng history and literature, no? At kung ano yung mga maaaring kombinasyon at pagkakaiba nito. Yung isang makita kay Dom doon sa kanyang obra ay isang pambihirang bagay din sa ating literatura, yung pag-isikap na magkaroon ng mas malawak na perspektiba doon sa mga pangyayari. Ibig na nasa isang pulok lamang o nasa isang lugar lamang sa Pilipinas, ay makita natin yung ambisyon na magkaroon ng mas malawak na Asian intermingling, na magaganap dito, at lalo na susunod pa siguro mga kabanata ay lalo pang lalalim ang ganong direksyon. Kaya nga, mahalaga ito dahil lumalampas ito doon sa usual, let's say, limits, the geographical limits of our literary imagination. I think Dom is pushing it further
than ever before. No? Although syempre si Charlson has been doing this too, but Dom has a particular take na I think about this. And siguro pwede natin may compare din sa ibang mga naging projects similar to this. Yung isang similar, I think very early example no, of this, let's say Asian or Southeast Asian scope or even global scope. Kasi global din naman yung kay Dom, no? Basically yung central character na Italian. No? And yung early example nito yung kay Harun Amino Rashid, yung Panglima Awang. This is a novel about Enrique de Malacca, written in 1958. It's in Malay. Si Harun Amino Rashid, he's a Malay Singaporean. He wrote a novel about a fictional account of Enrique de Malacca's travels through the world. And makita niyo rito sa kanyang fictionalization of a historical event. No? I mean, sa Pilipinas, we just had events that were, talking about Magellan and coming to the Philippines, diba? So, in 1958, he gave Enrique de Malacca a fictional name, Panglima Awang, or Captain Awang. And he gave this character a kind of agency that is not known in historical documents. Pero siguro mas importante doon ay how he used this supposedly Malay character to travel through the world and make connections not only with Europeans but with fellow Asians, right? And ang interesting dito is he develops a global idea. In effect, he looks at European modernity as having, let's say, in a way that's already somewhat cliche, having two sides: the dark side of European modernity and the brighter side of European modernity. And it's quite ironic that the bright side, or the positive side, in the novel is related to his interactions with Magellan, whereas your negative is Vasco da Gama, that very violent conqueror. So it already discusses, in a way, how an Asian perspective can go beyond a European modernity from that Malay perspective. Interacting also with mga taga Cebu, with Lapu-Lapu, etc. So makikita niyo talaga yung interesting idea dito. Now, the difference between this kind of work and Dom, I think, is that it uses a Malay character to be the central one, to describe the connections, the interactions, the travels that he did. And yung thinking ko, for Dom, using an Italian character, a major character, of course, also a historical character, si Vittorio Ricci, has something different to it, in a way. I think it's not. And it reminds me of yung historical method na tinatawag na connected history ni Sanjay Subramaniam. It's a connected history. Ang ginagawa nito, o Histoire Connectée, ang ginagawa nito, it looks at documents and it tries to figure out how certain characters in history interacted, teasing out that kind of interaction from documents. Ang ginagawa nila usually ay mga non-European languages, texts, looking at non-European texts and looking at how these non-European texts describe interactions among each other, with them and Europeans. So in a way, they're able to develop a kind of idea of where they are from a supposed non-Western or non-Eurocentric perspective. Ang isa pang character ng connected history is that's polyglot. It's the texture of languages, of the different languages colliding, interacting, and changing each other exist in this kind of approach. So, ang inaano kay Dom, maybe he can still maximize these kinds of collisions in his text to create more, let's say, tension, I mean, and to have this parang hindi gaanong sabihin natin embracing itong Italian Catholic mind, in this work, so that although he does frame it in a humorous way, yung mga what is meditation, how can he meditate, and what is the meaning of meditation to him, etc. I think these kinds of things he can continue to probe, no, and develop. Yun lang, it's the challenge here is that yun nga, dahil nga central character, what will happen to the Javanese character here? What will happen to the Tagalog character here? Are they just mga secondary characters? No, how will they be fleshed out? How will they interact? How will they undermine or aid the project of Vittorio Ricci? So, yun nga, I think there's a very rich combination here of historiographical, and literary methods and imaginations that we can employ. No. Salamat, Dom.
I'm looking at this mainly as a fictional project, and on that level, I agree that it's very interesting and engaging, and certainly worth pursuing. However, and well, not to be a spoilsport, but that might be possible. This is a work with a lot of scaffolding. Marami siyang mga requisitos para mabuo. Maraming quotation, may mga footnote, and so we're presented with many windows through which to see whatever the thing is that's coming together. I know that earlier I said I want work that takes risks, and of course this does take many risks, and I admire the ambition. However, I also had to ask the corny question: what would this work be without the footnotes? How necessary are they? What do they add to the project? Now, of course, I understand that this is the postmodern thing to do. Interrogate, have fun, and all that. But I'm still wondering where that voice is coming from, and what does it want to tell me eventually? I know that it keeps pulling me back into the present, as if to say, wait, we're just kind of watching a movie here, and we're in the seats, and we can talk to each other while that movie's going on. And okay, I get that. But having read your longer synopsis, of course, the more conservative and old-fashioned side of me sees more than enough in that synopsis for it to stand on its own. Without this little sideshow at the bottom, at the foot of the prose, you'll note that you're very deliberate in achieving a different register down there. You're almost stridently casual. You say, okay, right? As if to undercut the magisterial, atmosphere of the show above the line. And again, I get that, but I'm still not, and of course maybe because this is just chapter 1, I'm still not. I still don't know how to take these marginal or parenthetical remarks. Some of those footnotes actually function as, well, just informative footnotes. When you explain how, what does this term mean, of course that's helpful. But then again, of course, this other voice comes in and just has to make commentary. And honestly, I don't know at this point whether I should be amused or annoyed. Maybe I'll get habituated to that.
as I read the rest of the piece. And I know that you're too far gone into this project to really entertain the idea of removing them. But I still have to wonder, as a reader, if the work and all its power and wit and humor can stand on its own without this other voice kind of telling me how to take an attitude to it. And so that's really where my concerns lie. And maybe I'm not speaking so much to Dominic here, who I trust will carry this through as he conceives it to the end. But to those of us still kind of at the beginning of a project and thinking of doing something like this and exploring your options. There is the ambitious option, there's the more modest option, the conservative option, and you can try to see which kind of work will carry your message through, I think, not just for yourself, although of course mainly you're pleasing yourself, but also for your potential readers. And here and there, there's I don't know again if this is planned, but inevitably there will be small lapses in the registers between up and down. For example, there's a part there where in the main text where you use the term business model. And I know that I paused when I saw that, because it's just not the kind of thing that would go into that century if you were trying to make a deliberate difference between the two parts at all. But if you do plan to contemporanize the past, in the past, I mean, what I call the upper part, then you might as well go all the way and use contemporary language there too. Otherwise, business model sticks out as a lapse. Mga maliliit na bagay na ganyan. Pero decision mo yan as an author. So again, para dun sa ating mga nagsisimula pa lang ng proyekto, isipin nyo lahat ng mga options ninyo. Ang maganda dito, talaga sa proyekto ni Dominic, ay yung ambition niya at yung paglalaro niya sa lengguwahe, sa mga rehistro nito. Pero yun na, there are many pitfalls in this kind of ambition, and so he just has. I'm sure he's aware of that, and so I'm just pointing some of these more obvious things out. Salamat.
As a reader po, nakita ko yung nobela ni Dom bilang engaging na read, no? Medyo ironic kasi sa una, nagsisimula siya dun sa may pagka-abstract na style, ano, kumbaga nag-discuss siya about the genre, no, tapos metafiction, and then philosophical, sabi niya ni Sir Jimmy. And then natuwa ko dun sa paraan niya ng pag-shift, no, mula dun sa abstract, dun sa philosophical into something na nakikita ko na yung tagpuan, tapos naririnig ko na yung mga ingay ng, halimbawa naririnig ng bidang pare, no, dun sa pag-meditate niya, no, habang nakakatuwa yung pangyayari na yun, napilit siya nagme-meditate, tapos naririnig niya yung ingay ng pagkain ng noodle soup, no, tapos iba pang mga ingay, ano. Yung tension na naroroon sa katahimikan at kaingayan na yun ay napaka-engaging na pagbabasa. Kaya nag-agree ako dun sa sinabi ni Sir Juno na nakakamangha at bewildering yung yung realities na pine-present or yung effect nung nobela na parang ngayon ka lang nagbabasa ng ganito, at least in my case. Pero parang reading this is also like parang meron din siyang pinapaalala no na mga kombinasyon ng iba't ibang mga akda, no, halimbawa yung kay Kundera na Unbearable Lightness of Being, yung unang part no na philosophical, no. Dinidiscuss muna niya yung philosophy bago siya pumunta doon sa mga pangyayari. And also, sa more popular na mga reads, yung attempt niya, parang may humor din ng bawa sa Life of Painian Martel. Parang may ganun ding style. Ewan ko kung yun talaga ang ano. Pero yun yung parang effect sa akin. As well as kay Rushdie, yung Midnight's Children. Ano. Ganun yung in terms of humor, yun yung mga naaalala ko habang binabasa ko. So, nung nakita ko yung about Riccio, no, nalaman ko na kakaunti lang yung information kasi nag-search ako sa web at nakakatuwa na may mga nag-a-attempt na magsulat sa mga ganitong hindi ko pa naririnig, actually ngayon ko lang narinig na karakter ng kasaysayan, no, na may direct na implikasyon doon sa ating nakaraan din, ano. Doon sa kanyang poetics ay nag-discuss siya about cultural identity. No, halimbawa yung question of should we write of our own identities in fiction? Kasi minsan natanong daw si Dom ng why I wasn't writing about being a Chinese. No? Tapos kinote niya si Sunny Liu, the life I have yet to live in my country that is yet to be. So, going back to the novel, I noticed that the narrator has a different parang personality tulad ng mga dinidiscuss na kanina ni Sir Butch, no, and all. Halimbawa, directly nagtotalk yung narrator doon sa text, no, nagme-metafiction siya. Yung novel as sparsity, nagpapaliwanag siya gamit yung footnote. Tapos direkta siyang nakikisangkot doon sa pagbabasa ng reader. Dinadirect niya yung attention ng reader saan pupunta, ano yung patutunguhan nung pagbabasa ng reader. So parang dahil doon sa poetics, no, na hindi ko naman dapat may isip, pero dahil doon sa poetics, parang naisip ko rin, mahalaga rin bang tanungin natin bilang mambabasa kung sino yung nagsasalita dito, sino ba talaga yung nagnanarrate dito, no? Kaya tuloy parang naging interesante sa akin pag-isipan, no? Hindi bilang isang kahinaan nung akda, kundi pagdaragdag lang din siguro ng posibilidad. Dahil para sa akin ang ganda nitong nobela na to, natuwan-tuwa ako sa nobela na to bilang reader. So yung pag-isipan, hindi bilang kahinaan kundi posibilidad o option, dahil ito ay historical novel, yung pagsasangkot or pagkakasangkapan kaya ng autor sa nobela, no, kung paano niya ipe-present yung sarili niyang cultural identity, no, na dinidiscuss niya rin sa kanyang poetics, no, bilang narrator nung kasaysayan, no, na kanyang inaakda dito sa nobela. Thank you so much po.
Hello? Test? Okay. Medyo mahina. Okay, so I am a book editor. That is my day job. So I will look at this as an editor. No, it's fine. It's fine. Please feel free to answer my questions, okay? So this first question is a twofold question. Who is your audience? Because that might help inform your choices. Who is your potential audience? And who is the audience that you hope, the new audience that you hope to draw in with your work, to introduce you to your work? Because you were talking in your poetics about how some people don't understand and some people think you're just funny. And now I feel like you are trying to combine your humor and your knowledge into something that will draw new people in. So that's something to think about. For example, if you were going to draw in new readers who are young and who are, were raised on the internet, I would... Okay, first, you need your prologue. It's important. It contextualizes the whole novel. But we start with the description of Varsity. And what I would do is I would relegate the first paragraph and the first sentence of your second paragraph into the footnotes. And then you can start with the rest of the text, because for me, the excitement doesn't begin until chapter 1. And it is a very exciting, funny book. Your book, we've talked about this at length, but I will say it for this live stream. Your book reminds me of Terry Pratchett, of Journey to the West, of Candide, and of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And I do not know if you've read the last one. But we have two different kinds of footnotes here, and you're doing the Terry Pratchett funny footnotes. So I actually want you to push the footnotes a bit more, be funnier, absolutely funnier in these footnotes. But I also want you to mix a sort of Jonathan Strange aesthetic of footnotes into your novel, because for those who don't know, Jonathan Strange is an 800-page novel, and it has so many footnotes. There is one spread where the lines of the novel are just 2 lines and the rest are footnotes. There's lots of different stories going on in the footnotes. If you've heard of the audiobook, when it used to be CDs, the footnotes for Jonathan Strange in the audiobook have their own CDs. So in addition to being funny, you should tell more stories in the footnotes. And that leads me to my next point. If you feel that you must justify the footnotes, I feel like you don't. But a suggestion is you make your narrator who is doing these footnotes a character altogether. Maybe a historian, someone who maybe a literary historian in addition to this kind of historian, because they seem to know, like what Meme said, all about different novels that are contemporary. But you don't actually need to have them, they shouldn't be that prominent in your novel per se. You just find out more about the narrator in little bits and pieces in these footnotes. So some other things I'd like you to think about are, we both like Terry Pratchett's novels. So what do you think Terry Pratchett achieves in his Discworld with those footnotes? And I think that is what you can strive toward. I have some other questions here. You mentioned scuttle away thrice, and I feel like that's a cultural reference that I'm not getting. So what I will say about that is that in one page, you have scuttle away in 2 footnotes, and they are right next to each other. And that's fine, because authors need to repeat things so that the reader understands that, I'm supposed to keep this in mind as I go forward. In this case, I feel like those 2 scuttle aways are too close together, so it might look like a mistake, but it isn't. And in this case, I feel like your use of scuttle away is signaling to the reader that this is your particular voice, and this is what we will have to put up with for the rest of the novel, and it's not a bad thing. And once again, to that end, I feel like you should be even funnier in the footnotes. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Si Fonte. Good morning. So, una sa lahat, gusto ko sabihin na nag-enjoy ako. I really enjoyed reading Dom's excerpt from the novel. And I think the comedy is on point mostly. And I understand that it's a work in progress, but what he's achieved so far achieves what he set out to do. And I agree with Vida. I think Dom is trying to fuse the wittiness, his wittiness with his erudition. And I think it works for the most part in this text. I like the comedy kasi it works on different levels. So meron siyang may pagka-dramatic irony, and it demystifies some things ilan sa mga golden calves natin, like Europeans, di ba? Parang Filipinos worship Europeans. And yet, in this novel, we're binabasag ni Dom yung image natin na isang European, not just a European priest. So di ba parang sa kasaysayan natin, the European priest has two faces, the Damaso and the revered cleric. Yeah, no, not really. But I don't think any of the the priests in Noli or Fili are revered. But I think parang may ganun parang tendency yung mga Pilipino, di ba? Nagmamana sa pare, etc., etc. Pero dito, ang ganda nung demystification niya by using the third person omniscient, na parang may view yung mga taga-Xiamen na, wow, this dude is a master of meditative arts. He was unfazed in the face of an intense naval battle. And yet, we know because of the narrator that inside he was shitting himself, basically. Diba? Parang nawalan siya ng malay kasi ganun siya katakot. Pero dahil dito, dun sa writing style niya, nagbanggit ng mga authors kanina. Naalala ko naman dito si Jose Saramago dun sa nobelang Cain. So kasi medyo ganito din yung yung kanyang approach. So parang kinukuwento niya yung nangyari kay Cain pagkatapos niyang isumpa ng Panginoon na maglagalag sa buong mundo. And he narrates para siyang retelling ng Bible from the perspective of Cain. And the writing style is also very tongue-in-cheek na parang pinagtatawanan niya yung Diyos, pinagtatawanan niya yung paniniwala, yung mga inilatag sa Biblia na sinasabi niya. Then may iba pang history dito na nakakatawa kasi demystify din niya yung nakasanayan nating basa sa religion, sa Biblia, sa religious texts. So I think very effective yung comedy, yung humor. Isa ko pa naalala dito sa text, sa footnotes, nabanggit ni Vida kanina si Pratchett tsaka yung Jonathan Norrell, Mystery Strange. Ang isa ko naalala ay House of Leaves ni Mark Danielewski. So, yun din, mega footnote, 1,000 plus page book, horror story, tapos sangkatutak yung footnotes, at essentially may 3 kwento sa loob ng libro. May video documentary na parang lost text na ikinukwento nung narrator dun sa main text, tapos may isa pang tao na nakabasa nung research paper about the video documentary na nag-a-annotate nung research story. So 3. Yung original video documentary, yung research paper, yung critical paper about the video documentary, and then the annotations nung nakahanap nung research paper. So 3 layers ng kwento. And I think pwede nga i-explore dito yung baka gawing tauhan din yung nagkukwento, kung sino mang historian to. And actually parang yun yung gusto ko malinawan din. Sino yung nagsasalita? Ano siya? Ano yung pinalaman niya sa kwento ni Riccio? So ito ba ay author as persona, or ito ba ay specific character na makikilala natin sa footnotes? So feeling ko, yun nga, magandang gabay yun. Sino ba tong nagsasalita? Sino ba tong persona sa nobela? To guide how the writing, how the voice flows from the first chapter all the way towards the end. And with that, I'd also like to ask, so if we solve the question, who is speaking, then maybe we can also ask, why is there a need to write each of the chapters as if we were publishing it on a weekly basis? Kasi parang yun yung tunog niya, para siyang serialized novel in Liwayway or in some weekly or monthly literary magazine. Kasi I feel like after a novel's worth of chapters, parang magiging repetitive yung ending ng chapter na make haste, dear reader, to find out what the miracle was. So, I mean, each chapter has that implicit end to itself anyway. So, ang tanong ko nga, parang, sino ba yung sasalita at bakit kailangan ng ganitong device para i-imitate yung serialized novels? So, ayun, baka magandang pag-isipan yun. Next po, gusto ko yung nabanggit ni Sir Bowman kanina. Mahilig ako dun sa recently na naging interesado ako dun sa sa connections ng Southeast Asia, 'di ba? Parang ayun nga, ang borders natin ay imaginary, ang dagat ay walang hanggan. So kahit sa Pilipinas, para iniisip natin yung mga provincial, yung land borders, iniisip natin immutable. Pero sa totoo lang, ang halimbawa, Mindoro Oriental na napakalayo sa Palawan, nila ng dagat yung oil spill galing sa Mindoro Oriental all the way to Taytay, Palawan, on the western edge of the Philippines. So, ang ganda nung parang paano tayo kinoconnect ng dagat. At nakikita ko to sa nobela, sa pamamagitan nung pagbabalangkas niya ng isang fictionalized history, hindi lang ng Pilipinas, hindi lang ng Xiamen, kundi ng yung buong Timog Silangan, Southeast Asia. So ang gusto ko yung ganung perspective, yung ganung malawak na punto de vista ng proyekto, at gusto kong purihin yun. Yun din, gusto ko itanong, yung sa nobela, may iba bang punto de vista o mag-iba bang points of view na lilitaw sa novel? Is it only gonna be confined to Riccio, or are you gonna write from the perspective of Corporal Wu, from Joey, Javanese Avenger? So parang baka maganda ring isipin, if you write from the perspectives of these different people, how will the tone change? Will it still be comedic? Will you still make fun of them, or is the tongue-in-cheek tone parang limited to Riccio because he's a white Italian person colonizing Southeast Asia? And then, ang isang feeling kong pwedeng pag-isipan, yung sinasabi kanina na there should be distinct voices in the main text and in the footnotes. So, for instance, I think when you're being didactic, or when you're editorializing the experience, the historical experience, I think you should keep it to the footnotes rather than let it bleed into the main text. For instance, sa page 19, meron dito Brother Sun, on the other hand, did not see what was so wrong about what Riccio described. After all, even in Manila, everyone knew that the church liked to lie, like the lie that the church didn't like to lie, or kill, or steal. It feels like it's a comment that the footnote person would make rather than something that should appear in the main text. So maybe kailangan himayin kung alin yung mga hirit na dapat nasa main text at nasa footnote. Kasi parang comedy na yung paglalarawan sa main text, pero minsan parang nakakatisod yung ganung hirit kasi parang yung mga gaitong hirit, yung editorialized, parang mas bagay siya dun sa reader ng history, dun sa historian type of character rather than parang dun sa medyo straightforward na paglalarawan.
Salamat. Okay. Now, we have a few minutes left, no? So, we will go with si Luna, Jing, and then kung...
Since lunch will be served at 11:45 or Lias Daw, we can extend a bit if that's the consent of the body.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt that fascinating study or critique of the work. But I agree with the main points that you were trying to convey with the group. And ako naman, simple lang din yung gusto kong ipasa rito. Yung ability niya na magpatawa, let's say, nasa page 22. When the novel makes use of minor characters, brothers Sing and Song, tuwang-tuwa ako dun sa pagpapangalan sa kanila at parang mga emissaries sila sa isang lugar na tinutulungan niya yung main protagonist para magkaroon siya ng feel dun sa landscape. Tignan ninyo yung kung papaano dinidemystify yung religious devotion ng priest. Wasn't it amazing how long the priest had lasted? Nandun yun may mga objects na nakikita dun sa maiksing eksenang yun. Yung floor with the bowls of rice, fish and rice, tapos yung may kites, tapos may mga umiiyak na bata na parang sinasabi, dito sa lugar na to, patay ang mga pangarap ng mga bata kasi may mga mas parang yung business of living ng mga tao ang inaatupag at pinapagsalita ng nobilista yung mga babae. Merong portion dito those two men are amazing. What endurance, what devotion. Tapos one of the women replied, endurance? Try having 5 kids with a deadbeat husband. Maybe after 20 more years of endurance, I can rest in the grave. So I love those interjections in the text. And I was hoping there would be more of that kasi ito yung pinapangako mo dun sa poetics na tragic comedy. Di ba pag sinabing trahedya, mabigat, pero pagka komedya, magaan. At nakikita ko yun doon, yung quality na yun. At may isa kang footnote dito na sa tingin ko, it embodies what you're trying to do. At para siyang halos may pagkakowan yung tunog niya. Tama ba yung pronunciation ko doon? Not sure. Yun. Footnote number 11. According to local legend, one evening as the Kangxi Emperor fell into a deep slumber, his spirit flew to the streets of Xiamen and met the wide-eyed monk. The latter didn't blink, not even when the Manchu Emperor stuck his fingers into the monk's eyes. The sight of those bleeding orbs staring back at him startled the Emperor awake, after which he declared that the province of Fujian had to be well and truly subjugated. Otherwise, he would never get a good night's sleep. I love this footnote. Napakaganda nung imagery nung nagdurugo na orbs. Tapos kinoconnect mo dun sa almost hindi pagmamahal nung emperor sa violence at barbarity na para bang this is what he lives for. This is what emperors are. So, binabati kita dun sa tinatangka mong sabihin, hindi lang dun sa fictionalities ng mga territories, kundi yung the way religions mesh and the way empires work. Sa huli, baka sinasabi mo rin na, how sure are we that the histories that we read are truly, di ba, a faithful account? Lagi namang nagdududa tayo dun But doubt is one of the virtues of a true fictionist. Hindi ka nagtitiwala ng basta sa mga nakikita mo. And yun, natutuwa ako doon.
Beijing.
Hi, Dominic. First, I want to tell you that when we met when we submitted our lists of the works we wanted to include, I put yours first. I actually enjoyed your piece very much, mainly for its humor, also for its erudition. I thought that both the main text and the footnotes are very funny. But I'm usually very reluctant to comment on novel excerpts because you can't tell from the 2 chapters by ito or what this novel is going to be like, no? And many of the comments, many of the questions that were raised here, you have already probably answered in the novel that you have already written, except that we have no access to it, no? So, I have to say that, I mentioned earlier what my expectations are here, and you have met them. This is certainly something new. It's very imaginative, and it has that level of skill with the language that I'm looking for. The emotional power, there is no way for us to tell, because this is too short, no? This is just the beginning. And then here, in the question of Jimmy, what is at the heart of this novel? You mentioned it in your poetics, I think, and it's in your last paragraph. This, to me, in the present, is the core of what it means to write fiction, be it historical or sci-fi, etc. And then all of these fictions are, at their core, an investigation into the creation of a reality, which, of course, unsurprisingly, is just another kind of fiction, and so on and so forth, until the last human being some pathetic creature on a tiny planet orbiting some distant dying star gives in to natural selection. If that's at the heart of your novel, it's a very dark novel. And you have used comedy to undermine or to disguise or to camouflage or to fool your readers when this is in fact your message. I would be curious to know how you would go from that, the comedy of that meditation, of the two priests, and all that sort of thing, to this. Kasi parang ang layo nila. Do you
Okay,
May bago bang magsasalita? Any new, otherwise we'll go to the, Roland.
I wouldn't say I enjoyed reading the novel kasi hindi pa nga siya buo at wala pang emotional or empathic relationship that it builds with me as a reader, no? But I would say there's a pleasure in the reading of these excerpts, no? Because it does a very difficult project of undermining its own agenda. Coming to a kind of cycle that repeats itself until the natural selection leads to that very dark logical conclusion that it will all fade into a kind of a dark hole vacuum anyway. And there are a lot of indications that markers in which how to read the novel is being positioned by the author, by the narrator themselves. No? Sa description ng novel, it comes that the ever elusive dream of hope, a 17th century quest towards an elusive dream of hope. And this is a 21st century, and that dream has not been realized. So parang may kind of interesting kwento. So it's a very dense. It's also unpacking. It's also packed with kind of craft na may enjoyment in the reading on the one hand, but there's also kind of density of the narrative being mixed with all this philosophizing and discursive turns na ginagawa din ng the novelist himself. And then if we go to the somewhere, it's a prologue, it's a very Marxist phrase, first as tragedy, then as farce, then some very Marxist. Tapos he comes up with a liminal category of farcity, which means it's all very un-Marxist. The whole thing he'll be narrating is also kind of undoing of both history and fiction, which is another kind of something positioned also as something contradictory in historical fiction, nandun sa poetics. So what unites both history and fiction is the idea of narrative. The narrative almost being dreamlike, na klase na narrative. It's not going to be linear. It's going to be in fragments, no? So interesting dahil it's kind of yung binabanggit yung oceans uniting these islands of Southeast Asia, coming up with a question then and now of what Southeast Asia is or the Philippines is. Pero obviously those questions, binabanggit naman ni Dominic din sa poetics niya, those are very childish or prankish kinds of questions dahil nga it's still not realized until now. It's very philosophical on the one hand, it's also very problematic on the other hand, nihilist pa nga dahil it's not going to be answered in a very simple or even a 900-page novel na klase. Yun ang gusto ko, yung a kind of porousness of categories na ang novel nangyayari sa cracks rather than in the narrative itself, the cracks in the narrative nangyayari noon ang novel na to. At the reading is very gripping kapag tinunghayan mo naman talaga. Grip na napapanghawakan ka. Not just wala pa yung narrative that comes not yet into fruition. At also he mentions the idea that the narrative and like everything else, the idea na coming into existence lang. Which means it's also very phenomenological, itong novel na to, how the narrative will come into existence. So very self-reflexive on ang ganong klaseng novel, no? But it's also very ironic that the narrative is not going to work out anyway because it will just fall off the cracks again. which is also a very kind of yung postmodern, o hindi pa nga postmodern, parang deconstruction is sliding. Pagkatapos mo deconstruct, magko-construct ka na naman, i-deconstruct na naman until eventually there's little to deconstruct and to construct in this kind of loopingness kasi it will all then into kind of a black hole nga. So, interesting yung insight na yun at parang interesting yung exercise pero syempre ang kwan din what is the point to in this kind of writing if that is the point that kwan parang medyo dark nga. And I do I do appreciate that opinion. On the other hand, parang well, what is the point of reading? What is the point of contemplating about the novel?
Sige, kung walang bagong magsalita, briefly si Bowman and Butch. No?
Kasi yung naisipan ko, isang observation lang ito, no? Kasi kung pansinin niyo yung prosa na ito, it's very fast-paced. Tapos very quick, yung humor. Parang it contrasts with what it's actually talking about. It's actually talking about different languages, cultures, meeting up. There's a great possibility of mutual incomprehension. And sabi nga ni Dom, it's so difficult. The most difficult thing is to translate is a joke, right? So, okay, in contrast to the difficulties of communication that you can imagine in the 17th century, with all these Europeans, Asians interacting with each other, and the great threats of of misunderstanding, each other, di ba? And but on the other hand, you have yung parang narrator na parang very brisk, fast-paced, etc. So parang there's this contrast between the real and actual problems of slow pace of transmission of communications, also the process of trying to understand what each other is saying. Na parang may contrast. Now there's a kind of joke that we also do, yung joke about people who misunderstand each other dahil sa mga magkaibang lingwahe na ginagamit nila. Common yata ito doon sa mga kita natin sa mga jokes sa YouTube or they show two people, for example, hindi ko malala. But I like this one, is a taga New Zealand, he makes jokes about isang Germans and Austrians communicating. Ngayon, for people, for example, who are not, for example, Germans would, in at least doon sa kanyang mga dinadramatize, they don't know what's funny. They're talking to an Austrian and they can't understand each other. The Austrian also doesn't know what is funny, right? Pero yung New Zealander who's observing it knows what is funny. Bagam, on the other hand, yung German at saka Austrian, they just can't understand what's happening. The Austrian German is incomprehensible to a German speaker, to a Deutsch. So parang yung nangyayari dito sa novel is like it's making jokes about these kinds of incomprehension. Pero it seems like the characters themselves understand it or find it humorous too. Whereas the problem is they might not actually be understanding any joke that's happening in the narrative. That actually yung incomprehensions that are happening in there aren't funny to them, but it's funny to the narrator. Because parang in a way, anachronistically speaking, English is there to provide a kind of bridge, to make us understand that this incomprehension is funny that's happening inside the novel. Pero, for example, an Italian talking with Chinese and they not understand each other, probably they won't understand what's funny with their situation. But it gets funny dahil nga doon sa naging narrator. So it's just an observation that probably the characters themselves don't find anything funny. In fact, they don't understand what's funny about the situation. Pero the narrator finds it funny and makes footnotes about it also to make it funny. Kaya nga merong mga tension na naisip dito tungkol sa what is supposed to be in the footnote, which is really a meta character, and the narrator himself. What is the status of the narrator? Is the narrator embedded in the lives of these characters, or is he also aware of these jokes, himself?
Okay, Butch for.
I'm still concerned by the design or the framing of this narrative. I'm going to raise a question which
and I don't know if I just missed the answer somewhere, but are the narrator, I mean, is the writer of the presumed writer of this novel and the writer of the footnotes the same person? Okay. Because the answer to that, I think, is important. If they are the same person, then it is the author kind of interpolating himself. No, you think it is? I submit that they shouldn't be, because then he will have more leeway. I mean, I'm taking off from Ralph's comment earlier. Something that triggered my the idea that the novel itself, for example, could be a found object, like Morga Sucesos, and then Rizal annotates it and argues with Morga. No, and so the registers of these languages will be very different, and the commentary below will be very different, because I don't see the payoff of having the same character doing the footnotes as the writer of the piece. Why doesn't he just bring them into the body of the piece if he's the same person? I think that when I thought of that resolved a lot of questions in my mind. Sino ba nagsusulat nito? Sino ba nagkukwento nito? Kasi kung parehong tao din lang, hindi mo na kailangan baguhin pa yung lingwahe mo. Pwede mong gamitin yung okay doon sa unahan. I-modernize mo na yung buong ano niya. Kesa nagpapanggap ka na ibang trabaho ito. So, para sa akin, I know that this is, again, you're too far gone to maybe change things. But logically, for me, this would have been the way to go. Make the novel an independent piece, and then create another character remarking on it and interacting with it. And thereby you establish that persona much more solidly. And the game will be, I think, much more enjoyable.
I just have one question, Butch. May I just? So you think that if it is a found object,
yes,
like somebody found an object, it is so these two are two different persons.
Yes.
Okay. You feel that would work better?
I would think so. Hindi ka makita yung point na i-interrogate mo yung sarili mo. Ano eh?
I guess.
One. I address to Dominic. Dominic, in my experience, my own personal experience, which of course is very limited, I have not met a priest who does not know how to meditate, except to pray the rosary. But of course, my experience is very limited. Now, Sandra, what I am really saying is, I want your characters to come alive in your own imagination. That's all.
Yes, sorry, I just forgot to mention it earlier. You make a lot of references to lots of other literary works, but I think your structure is actually Journey to the West, because you have Riccio here, and he is the priest. And then in your synopsis, you have the three others, and then they're the pig, the monkey, I forgot the last one. But anyway, so I guess at some point you are fictionalizing this history, and I think that's where the other three come in. I would strongly consider how closely are you hewing to Journey to the West when you're also fictionalizing this true history.
Okay, sino pa? Final na. I think we've discussed a lot of the from to make footnotes and maybe a bit in the end. So
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much. Genuinely very helpful. As indicated earlier, a lot of the issues are things that have been kind of percolating in my mind, but also the discussion helped to kind of bring some to the foreground, actually, and bring some to the foreground helped me see what's working. Hello. So thank you so much. I'll address some of the questions. For the question of, this is tied to the last thing Peter said and the first thing Sir Bowman brought up, which is about, and the questions about the perspective. So Riccio is actually kind of a fake main character, because as with Journey to the West, the monk in the story, actually in the original story, doesn't play much of a really good role. Technically, he's the center, but he's not really that important. So Riccio actually functions similar. He'll play a more important role than the monk in Journey to the West, but the real heart of the story will actually end up being the three other characters who aren't introduced, and who will become who don't closely align with either the monkey, the pig, or the river demon. So I'm not gonna make them one-to-one correspondence, but just mild influence. So loosely based pattern after Journey to the West. That's actually the reason for the serial novel style. The couplets at the top, the ending where it talks about, go to the next one, because Journey to the West is kind of oral literature based. So the structure was oral literature, a little bit like oral literature. I have been considering removing it, actually. Many of the later chapters don't have the ending where make haste to the next chapter. They don't do that anymore. So it's been on my mind whether to stick with it, whether to remove it, to use both, how to use both and make it consistent. It's been something I've been thinking about. The point that Sir Butch brought up about the scaffolding and the footnotes and the point of that. So that has been in my mind as well. I won't be removing the footnotes pretty much, but it has crossed my mind a lot to what extent the main text on its own kind of carries the story. I do have another work that's in the collection that is pretty much everything of importance happens in the footnotes, and the main text is basically a found object. So I have a story where I've done that. There's a found object, then there's footnotes commenting on the found object. I don't want to repeat that, and I definitely here want the main text to be the star. So I'm working with Pratchett, Jonathan Strange, a couple of others as kind of models to try to figure out. I still use the footnotes in a comedic pattern, with more than just comedy, of course, but trying to figure out how to do that, and of course still make the main text the center. So thank you for bringing it up, Sir Butch, because it's been in the back of my mind, so it's good to remember to do that, especially in the later parts. Because it's not done. I mean, 60% is still far from done, right? So, the point about I guess I'll just address two more since I know we're running short of time. Two more of the issues that I brought up. I think the first one is so one of the things I said, that it's been in the back of my mind. In this one in particular, it got foregrounded from the discussion, and I realized I've been thinking about it a little. I should probably think about it more. Is precisely the position of the narrator, precisely who the narrator is, what their role is, assuming they become their own person. I've been thinking about it. I suppose I need to raise it in my priorities to flesh out exactly what I wanted to do with that narrator, because the narrator's voice is the strongest voice in the story, and that I guess that won't entirely change for the rest of it. So thank you for bringing that up. With the question of the darkness, the element, and the comedy in the darkness. Actually, when I was starting to conceptualize the project, that was one of the main focuses that I was looking at, because what I wanted to do, I wanted to fuse it in a way that seemed seamless to me, but also kind of surprising. So in the sense that basically, okay, so the background of that being that, well, when I look at history, when I read history, history is very dark. There's a lot of darkness in history, but to me, it's always very hopeful, to some degree, which is a very Marxist standpoint, because you look at history and you see it, and it's all constructed. It's happened a particular way. It didn't necessarily have to happen that way. There's always darkness, but there's always hope in my understanding of history. The darkness needs to shine out a bit more, just because you know what's happened, but there's always that possibility of changing something. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with the comedy and the tragedy as well. So that the idea actually is supposed to be that if you think of like two valves, it starts out basically 100% comedy and 0% tragedy. As the story progresses, the tragedy bar goes higher and higher. The comedy bar starts to lower down until you get to the very end, and by the very end, it's basically 90% tragedy, but still 10% comedy. So there's always humor, there's always jokes, there's always some lightheartedness and some hope there for change. But by the end of it, you recognize, there's a lot of stuff that has happened. Because the history of this, the actual events, at least the actual events that I'm historicizing, is pretty tragic. There is a massacre at some point, mass deportation. There was going to be a war. The reason the war never happened is for quite cynical reasons, actually, which will be presented in the novel. It's not actually a very bright history. Riccio himself is not actually a very tolerable character, the real Riccio. He's quite intolerant, actually, as a person. There's a little bit of revenge in how I'm portraying him as this kind of pathetic priest. But yeah, so to me, that's the goal. Portray the darkness of it clearly, lure in people with humor so that they don't run away from, oh my gosh, it's about a massacre. No, look at the jokes! And then the massacre comes. And then the humor never goes away. But you don't turn away from the tragedy of what happened either. And so you confront the tragedy head on, and then you also have some hope. But we can build something better, or maybe we can make something better, right? Or we can learn something from it. And that's kind of the idea. And yeah, so thank you again so much, because that's very useful comments. Thank you.
So, so if there are other things you want to bring up and other accusations you want to make against Dom, you can assault him anytime. So, maraming salamat. No? I think we had a good first session, and have a good lunch.
We're gonna